Poker's legendary champions, next generation stars, and tireless ambassadors of the game, sharing their wisdom and guiding your journey to high achievement on the green felt. This is Chasing Poker Greatness with your host, Brad Wilson.
Yo, what is happening, my friend? Welcome to the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast. As always, this is your host, the founder of EnhanceYourEdge.com, Brad Wilson. Today's guest is one of the all-time beasts in both the online and live poker realm, Ari Engel. Ari has over $7 million in live tournament winnings, was the number one ranked online player for tournaments in 2006, and is currently the 35th ranked tournament player in the world, according to the Global Poker Index. Coming off of a scorching hot LAPC with 2 wins and 2 runner-ups, Ari is showing no signs of slowing down anytime soon. In our conversation, we're going to cover a ton of ground, including Ari's experiences with backers, unexpected acts of kindness in the poker world, and stepping out of your comfort zone when you see your fellow human beings being mistreated. You'll also learn how Ari used online trolls to improve his game, what Ari believes is an elite return on investment for every tournament you enter. Hint, it was much different than what I had previously believed. How Ari's opinion on playing for the win, quote unquote, has changed over the years, and much, much more. So without any further ado, I bring to you the perpetually great Ari Engel. Ari, welcome to the show, my man. How we doing?
Great. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I hear you're live at the cheap hotel across from the bike.
Yes, I am.
Almost live at the bike.
Almost live at the bike.
We got a series coming up that you're battling in?
So I was playing a lot at LAPC at Commerce, and that just got over. And I'm trying to figure out what my next plan is. So, like, yesterday I was just tanking and I didn't make a decision, and I was like kind of torn up between everything. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay in LA 1 or 2 more days. So there's like they have this bad format, which is I've done well in, called Quantum, which I'm like kind of against, but whatever. They have it.
What do you mean by bad format and that you're against it?
So it's a format where, like, so, you know, normal traditional tournaments, you buy in for $100, you get 100 chips, whatever the chips are, and everyone's on an even plate. And that's like the ideal when it comes to tournaments, where, you know, no matter what, you could be the richest person in the world, poorest. When you get into the tournament, everyone's in the same slate. When you lose your chips in the tournament, you're out. Some tournaments have gone to a re-entry thing where when you get out, you're allowed to buy back in and start again.
Yeah, I've heard 1 or 2 people mention that on Twitter, I think.
Yeah, basically, so these re-entry tournaments, they're not like from like a pure like a romantic notion of the game where everyone starts completely equal. You're not completely equal because you can buy in if you lose, but when you do buy in, you're not getting any more chips or any head start than everyone else. You're just getting the same chip stack. So it is still kind of even, at least somewhat. What Quantum does is it takes these re-entries to the next level, and it allows people to buy in on day 2 for, let's say, 10 times the buy-in and getting 8 times as many chips. So you might get like what is an average stack going into day 2, but you're going to be paying a lot more than the people that played on day 1 will pay. The point of this, before we get into why I think it's bad, the reason why this is done and the good parts about this would be, here you are, let's say you're playing a $100 tournament. The prize pool is very unlikely to get too big. But if you allow people to buy in for $1,000 on day 2, all of a sudden the prize pool is getting much bigger. Now for your $100 entry, you have a chance to actually hit this huge prize. And for the people that are buying in on day 2, normally when you play $1,000 tournaments, you'd be playing against people that are willing to put up $1,000 into the tournament. Here, you're playing against people that have only put up $100 into the tournament. So you're playing against a weaker skill basis. So that's the general idea about it. They've Bike, the guy that runs Bike, Mo, is really into it, and he's actually done a really good job like building this idea from nothing. No one had ever done something like this to something that's very common in California, at least. And so they run a lot of these kind of tournaments.
It's almost like, I mean, it's basically a satellite, right? It's like a satellite into a bigger buy-in tournament, but you just keep the chips from the satellite. Like they just carry over.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of similar to that. Another like slight quirk to it is most of these tournaments, if you make day 2, you will get some money at that time. So, for example, the tournament going on right now, it might cost, there's also like different buy-in points. So like the day 1s have different buy-ins, but the point is, let's say in this $100 example, if you make day 2, you might get $300 right away. And now you like start like the next tournament, and out of all the people that start day 2 and all the money that started in day 2, they'll also pay a lot. They'll pay 33% of those instead of the normal 12.5% or 15%.
But the guys that don't, you have to make it through day 1, right? So the guys that buy in on day 2, they don't get 300 for cashing right when they buy in, right?
Exactly. So at the end of day 1, anyone who survived from those low buy-in players will get some amount of cash. Usually it will ensure that they're in the profit right away. So they're in some version of small profit right away. And then the people that make day 2, all that money is collected up, and that becomes a very like like I was saying, 33% of the field will pay. Yeah, so it's a really like it's a weird and different format, and it's not one that I would create myself. Having said that, when if 5% of my yearly schedule involves these kind of tournaments, I'm okay with it. And out of the convenience of I'm in LA already, and I enjoy being in LA and California, I'm just probably going to end up playing it. But even though it's not the format that I most love.
I think variety is kind of the spice of life, right? And like you said, it's not going to be a huge percentage of tournaments. In my opinion, like I do feel playing freeze outs 100% of the tournaments that you play in might get a little boring. Like that could get a little monotonous over time. So having different formats mixes it up a little, right?
A little bit. I think tournaments inherently, though, given that the stakes are always increasing, there is that like increasing level of interest, excitement, different, definitely super different. So like, of course, when you're playing 150 blinds at the beginning, 150 blinds deep, and then at the end, you're playing 15 or 20 or 30 blinds deep, and you're always playing against different opponents. So I do think for me, at least, it's not so much the monotonous of it, but yeah, that is a point. And that's, certainly like one of the things that I do enjoy is like playing in like different parts of the world against different competition with different structures and different formats and all that. Yeah, it is cool having those differences.
And adaptation, I think, as poker players, one of the edges that folks can get is when you introduce a somewhat new format to a field, the players that adapt the quickest are going to have the biggest edge in the field. And you're never going to get that opportunity if you're just playing, freeze outs all the time, because you have a strategy, and you're going to go into the tournament with the baseline strategy, and then you're going to deviate based on the components of the table that you're playing at. But basically you don't have to really think on the fly is what I'm getting at. But yeah, are you going to buy in day 2, or are you going to play the day 1?
So last night I played one of the day 1s. Probably I will play a day 1 today. And then if I don't make it through, I'd probably buy into the day 2. There are it's amazing nowadays, like the tournament scene, the live tournament scene, there's just so many choices and so many good choices to choose from. So it's like every week I have this like dilemma. There's like 3 places I want to be at the same time. And this week there's the same thing going on. There's a bunch of tournaments that I could see myself going to. There's like 4 places that all have like their pros and cons for me, at least right now. And then there's a bunch where I'm not even considering going to. Yeah.
Tell me, so congrats, by the way. You just took down. Oh no, you didn't take. Did you take down a tournament at the LAPC?
I did. I played. So I played a lot of tournaments, and a lot of the tournaments there were small field tournaments. I did do really well. I had 2 wins, 2 seconds, and a third. But again, small field things. Not crushing it financially overall, but doing very good. Yeah, thank you.
And so I knew you got second versus Anton Wig, who's another one of my. He's going to be coming on Chasing Poker Greatness in the next in the next few weeks. But how do you go from battling these small fields, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, to battling all day in $100 buy-in tournament?
Basically, I look at my year as having, let's call it 500,000 in buy-ins. It's definitely more than that. And I'm going to play, let's keep it easy, 100 tournaments. So my average buy-in is going to be, my math is bad, 500. And then it doesn't make a difference if this particular tournament is $1,000 tournament or this particular tournament is a $200 tournament. All goes into the same pool. It's all part of the same thing. And if I don't treat, if I play scared money in the $1,000 tournament and I don't treat the $100 tournament seriously, the whole equation doesn't work. And I need to recalibrate and maybe make different decisions. So yeah, that is actually, I kind of laughed it off, but it is a little bit of a problem. You want to make sure that you're going to play in tournaments where you can, play somewhere close to your A game. And if I, historically, when I have played too low or too high, there is that chance that I wasn't playing my A game.
For sure. I mean, that's a very professional way to go about it, as far as, looking at it as average buy-in and then putting the action in. I'm assuming that if you have the opportunity to play a bigger tournament with a weaker field, you pretty much always choose that option, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, of course, in this hypothetical, but yeah, in real world examples, the higher the buy-ins go, the tougher the field is going to be in general. But yeah, finding those amazing, I remember in maybe 2012 or 2013, I won a satellite to a $1,500 or $2,000 US dollar main event in Philippines. So I probably shouldn't have been playing it, like, if you're just looking at pure money wise, but I was also like looking to like satellite into these far-flung tournaments and get the experience of going to these different places. And I got to the Philippines, and there were going to be 2 series back to back in 2 different series. I got there, and there was a 5K high roller at one of these stops. And my average, I was not playing 5K high rollers at the time at all. But I looked around, and I'm a big poker fanboy. So like I know all the pros, I know all the people that have been on TV, etc., all that. And I didn't recognize anyone. And it was like 14 non-professionals, like 2 or 3 weaker level professionals. And so I jumped into it, even though it was like way bigger than what my normal buy-ins would be. Didn't even sell that much for it. Like I took a real big shot in those kind of things because it was that weird thing where you just mentioned where it's a high buy-in and a soft field, but that's not normal at all nowadays. Yeah.
I just want to take a moment to point out what a horrible question that was. Obviously, you choose the high buy-in tournament with the softer field. Really, really dumb question. Moving forward, so you're known as one of the hardest workers in poker. You put in a lot of volume. Do you know where does that work ethic come from? First of all,
I think some version of competitiveness in that family. Some I guess like the society and my parents and all that, and just like a general
tell me about the competitiveness in your family.
Well, yeah. So my family, I didn't feel super competitive in the family, but I always have been super competitive. I was extremely sore loser as a kid. So like in elementary school, let's say in sports, or middle school in that, and then like in high school when it came to like classes and like GPA and stuff like that, and like AP classes, SATs, all that, I was super, super competitive with other people, yes, but also like with myself. I don't know exactly where I definitely I've been more, I guess you could say harder worker. I don't know if that's true. Like nowadays, I feel weird using the term harder worker because I don't, when I'm playing tournaments all day, it doesn't feel like, or playing tons of live tournaments, like it's like I'm playing a lot of live tournaments, which are like the most public format of poker. So like everyone sees I play the most live tournaments. So like they're like thinking that, but there's like so many people that are like, of course, like no cash games, no internet, not almost like 98% of poker being played doesn't make it into any media, So like I just play the kind of poker that is like super public. Yeah, so actually, like, I think I play a lot of live tournaments, and like people call that like hardworking, but no, like these like super high rollers, there's no chance, like these like guys like studying solvers all day and like going from playing nothing to like 100Ks in 2 years, like those. I mean, I can't imagine that they're not studying like or putting in tons of hours and like extremely hard. Like I'm sitting back at a live table, getting food to the table, standing up, chilling, getting a coffee. It's not like I'm not doing like hard, intensive work when I play live poker tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard mental work, right? I mean, like it's hard to mentally stay in the game day in and day out and put in the volume in tournaments. I think like as poker players, it's easy to become complacent where if you're not feeling like you're going to play your A game or whatever excuse that you want to make to not play in a tournament, to take a day off. Lots of folks do that, myself included, at various parts of my poker career. But I wanted to ask that question to segue into another question. I have a quote that you said in an interview. You said you lose confidence very easily when you go on a downswing historically. And I have to imagine that live tournaments, volume's relatively low compared to like an online world, you're going to go on a downswing very often, very, very often.
Yeah.
So how do you continue fighting the good fight day in and day out when you lose confidence very easily?
So I'm very lucky in the sense that I'm very lucky in a lot of senses, but in this particular version of it, I started playing poker seriously in 2004. I've been successful since then. So I've been playing a long, long time. I'm single. I have no responsibilities. I have a not like a low cost of living, but I'm not some like high cost of living person either. Basically, I have a nest egg. I've had a lot of success. When I go in a downswing, I don't need to pay bills with that money. When I go in a downswing, it's not affecting my bankroll. It's not affecting the stakes that I can play. All those things. Even with all that, I still get mentally crushed in a lot of these downswings. But like anything that I'm gonna say has to come from this, like, and I like hate to talk like a social justice warrior person, but I feel like it's true. Their language, like it comes from this place of privilege. Like I come from this place where like the downswings don't affect me. Like the money wise at least, and that's like so big. Like so,
it is a big part of it, but it's not everything. I think
yeah, exactly. It's definitely not everything. And like I said, I'm very competitive, and it's like it's crushing. And also like so, there's another thing which you kind of maybe talked around it. I'm not sure exactly, but like I've always played lower average buy-in than someone of my success level would otherwise play. So that has allowed me to, kind of also like limit the downswings, limit these things. I'm playing higher ROI situations, but it's like over the long run, I'm limiting my own expectation when I do this, when I'm like constantly jumping down, constantly playing lower than I should.
Do you have any regrets? Do you have any regrets about playing lower?
Yeah, I mean, I try to look at things more like on continuum-based approaches rather than yes or no. So certainly, yeah, something along in that regret family that I moved to, but I'm like sliding back and forth because also like I never went busto like after being a professional poker player. So like that is really huge, and like I didn't want it. Like that was something that was that I tried very hard to like make sure. So I remember in like 2007 or something, like Johnny Bats, Cliff Josephy, he was like he's obviously like crushed poker forever, but he used to run one of the biggest poker backing firms, and I think he still does something in that family. And I was on the phone with him, and he goes, there's a 10K coming up next week. Let's start a deal. Let me put you into this 10K. Let's go. Just get into it, And he like wanted to lock me up. And like I didn't play 10Ks. Like it was like somewhat super exciting to do that, but it was constantly in my mind the way these makeup deals work, where like I'm going to play a 10K and then I'm going to be grinding online tournaments for 75 average buy-in, trying to make up those 10Ks. And like, I didn't want to do that. And I didn't need the backing for online. So we didn't end up making that deal.
Was there any way to structure the deal where it was only like higher buy-in live tournaments? Or did it need to be everything?
Right. I think that's definitely something that different backers would be open to. And as I became more successful, that is ultimately what I did a time or two. Something maybe for your listeners who are going through a hard time. I've been involved in business relationships, backing deals, or buying pieces with 3 different people in long-term situations. And all 3 of them have, on their side, single-handedly dropped me. Like I was happy to stay, and they got rid of me. So
why? Yeah. Why did that happen?
Well, the first guy said that I was one of their only successful horses, and they had started a backing fund, and they were getting too much in the hole, and they were worried about their liquidity, so they needed to get rid of some of their horses that were not in makeup, so they'd still have funds to keep funding the ones that were in makeup.
Makes sense. They have one successful horse, so let's cut him.
Well, it wasn't. I wasn't hugely successful for them, and I was somewhat successful, and I had a good deal. But yeah, I wasn't sure also if he was just lying to me and just wanted to drop me for whatever reason. Like I'm the kind of horse where I tell my backer the worst hand I played every day. There's some horses want to show off to them. At the time I thought my backer was better at poker than me. So I would always say the worst hand that I'd play and try to get advice for it. And my friends were always like in the background, why are you telling them that? Like, what are you doing? Like, that's such a horrible play, But it was not my concern to like have someone back me that didn't want to back me, or like even like I've dealt with like some poker professionals also. So that first guy was a poker professional, all that. When I dealt with non-poker professionals, I was like, as upfront as I can be about how like the downswings work and how I'm going to lose most of the time, how there's a shit ton of variance, excuse my language. So the other 2 people were like, one of them was complete non-professional, actually not like very not into poker almost at all. And I went on a 30K downswing playing live tournaments, which is not very much at all. And I go to him, look, this is super normal, and we just don't know. Like, I can get it out of it next tournament, or it could continue going. And he decided to stop it there. And then one of the other guys was just taking pieces for a while, and we had a personal falling out.
It's the backing game is tough. It's like a catch-22. I mean, anybody that's not familiar with poker, that doesn't understand the swings, that doesn't understand the variance, is going to get afraid after a certain period of time. Like, their tolerance is going to be much lower than it should be. But so now no backer, you're just battling on your own.
Yeah. So like after I won Aussie Millions, which was in 2016, that's my big score and my signature score, over $1 million. So big change financially, big change confidence wise.
Do you have 100% of yourself?
I didn't have 100%, but I had a nice healthy chunk. And after that, I then hit my second biggest score that same year, and things were just going really, really good. Although the side story was, after Aussie Millions, I went to EPT in Ireland, and I bricked 25 straight tournaments. And I don't have I've never cashed in Ireland, and yeah, so it's interesting the way poker goes overall. But anyways, at that time, I was really getting close to my peak poker confidence relative to the field. Maybe in the online days I had that same feeling, but it had been a long while since I'd felt that confident relative to the field. And I decided, together with like the poker industry felt like it was kind of pushing me in this direction, meaning like all my friends, all my colleagues, or all that were like pushing me in a direction that I should be playing higher. And in the past, when they had pushed me in that direction, it had been for my own benefit, meaning kind of like what we discussed earlier, where like, do I have regrets? Like I'm somewhat too nitty. So I remember I was playing HPT 1600, and a top professional at the time, I'm not even 100% sure who it was, goes, why the hell are you not at this WPT 10K or whatever? Like, you just can't be making enough to like justify you're way good enough to be playing the 10K. And so like I started playing more main events after that, more of the bigger buy-in main events rather than the like smaller buy-in main events. And that was real helpful. So like I do listen when the general world seems to be pushing me in a way, and it's like people that I respect. Anyways, I started playing some 25Ks, some high rollers, trying to pick the better ones. And for those, I always sold action. Maybe one or two times I didn't, but almost always sold a bunch of action for those. And I kind of viewed it as, so like even within my nittiness and all that, because I view these things as like a yearly basis thing, I've always put in 3% of my schedule being hard high buy-in tournaments. Like, that even when I was like grinding like circuit stuff mainly, there was always like an EPT stop a year where I can battle against the better players, against the people that still play online.
Why?
To make sure that so I grew up playing online poker. I always viewed online poker as like the major leagues, and like online. So basically like an online 1K tournament might be equivalent in toughness to like the 10K live, like a 10-to-1 ratio or something like that. It's not like completely true, but I kind of viewed it in that sense. So like
it's probably actually worse. The 1K is probably a lot tougher than the 10K actually.
Yeah, that's actually true. So after Black Friday, I played online for a little bit, and then I diverted to playing live tournaments. And I just naturally went to these like lower buy-in stuff, even though I'd been like playing, I think like playing definitely over $100 average buy-in tournaments, so it was like medium to upper stakes tournament, especially in those days. And there's no reason why I should have dropped down and been playing like $500 or $600 average buy-in live tournaments, or maybe $800, whatever it was. I was playing a lot of $300 live tournaments over the course of my year, a lot of circuit stops and stuff like that. So, but even during that time, I played some high stuff. I'm not sure where I was going or what question I was answering.
You just went off in a direction on your own. Yeah. I will say, like, it's always surprising to me. I guess it probably shouldn't be surprising to me at this point, the kindness of poker players, right? Because the crusher that tells you to play more 10Ks, and he's like, why are you here playing this 1500? I mean, that doesn't benefit him. That actually probably hurts him over the long run, depending on like the amount of people that he pulls to the 10K, if that's his stomping grounds, right? But like hugely beneficial to you. It's just a great kindness.
I will say that person probably would have tried to buy pieces of me in those big buy-ins if I played, and might have gotten a piece or two. So it wasn't completely out of the night. Actually, I found, and I agree with you, there is a lot of this kindness in poker, and like it does feel like the poker world on average has like a higher caliber level, or at least the people I've encountered, I've been very impressed. And I mentioned, I've mentioned on Twitter on one time, like I'm not such a religious Jew at the moment. When I started playing poker, I was much more religious, much more openly. And like, I've never encountered anti-Semitism at the table. I have seen other versions of bigotry. I'm not saying the poker world is perfect, definitely not. But it is kind of special, I think, in general, that the poker world is, as a whole, with exceptions, pretty nice. I will say though, on that note, where like learning from people, and like I've actually gotten a lot from the other side, from the people that are trying to be assholes, and so like this used to happen a lot on the forums. In like 2006, I was ranked as the #1 online player for tournaments, and at that time I was doing a lot of unconventional things. A lot of them were very good, a lot of them were very bad, and it seemed like every day there was a post on the forum saying like, what the hell is this Ari guy doing? like we thought he was good. How can this hand make any sense? And there was all sorts of things. And there was one guy in particular. I'm not sure. I'm hoping everything is okay with him because I haven't heard from him in a little bit. But he was like one of the really big characters in the poker world. His name is Stealthman, and he made a deep run in the main event a couple of years ago. He's a very, very big character in the poker world, and I sucked out on him with 3 people left in the $300 tournament online in like 2006, and for like 8 years after that, like he just used to like berate me about the hand, and those kind of things, and like he was right though. Like I was making a lot of mistakes I was doing, and I was defending at the time, like, no, I'm so good. Like, you guys don't understand the reads that I make. Like, he took 3 seconds extra in the timing. It had to, like, it's always this when they do it too quickly, it's always that. And I had all these reasons for what I was doing, and really I was fooling myself. And I was, self honesty and self reflection is so important as a poker player. But I was able to like use this like berating and like kind of like trolling that people were doing to my benefit, at times. So like
to
I've
give
been
you
able
fuel
to not to give me full, to even know what I was doing wrong.
Oh,
like,
so use it as a feedback mechanism.
Exactly. So like sometimes it's like the nice people say like, hey, you should go to this tournament to help me. But sometimes it's like the trolling. And that also is like, could be helpful. Like actually probably more often it's been the like trolling people have done and the shit talking and stuff like that has helped me.
Theoretically, I think that it's because when people do that sort of thing, they're triggered, they're in an emotional state, they're angry. And because they're angry, they want to prove how dumb you are and how smart they are. So they actually tell the truth. One quick story from early in my career at a cash game, a friend of mine who was more emotionally compromised than I ever was, but also likely a better natural poker talent than me. We were playing in a game, and there was one specific player who had like really the easiest physical tell in the world. He would get involved in a big pot. If you tanked long enough, so like 30 seconds or so, he would start talking and being very loud, like very animated. And is just like 100% always strong when he does it, like always. And he starts tanking this one time, and my friend has like a massive hand. And he's running bad. He's losing in the game. And dude starts talking, he starts standing up stands up. He's like whooping and carrying on and hollering. And my friend just like turns up like the second or third nuts and like face up. And he's like, well, since you started screaming and yelling, I'm just going to fold this. And like she folds it face up. And like I played against that guy for hundreds of hours in the future. Never once did he ever stand up and yell again, ever.
Oh man.
And I'm just like, what? Like, what is like? I don't understand people. Like they have a natural edge against somebody that's the number 1 ranked online player in the world. So naturally, what's the best strategic move there? Oh, let's tell him about it, and so that he can plug the week and get better.
Exactly.
That makes so much sense, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you do see like most of the people that acted like that don't last in the poker world.
Not even my friend either, because again, he emotionally compromised, and when you carry that level of emotion day in and day out, it's not sustainable. You eventually crack, and it becomes just too much for you. Like berating you for 6 or 7 years after the fact. Imagine, like he's playing tournaments all the time, right? Like imagine the baggage, the emotional baggage he's carrying with himself every day for 7 or 8 years. Like it's really insane. But also speaking on that same thing, like there is this belief that I have where if everybody understands what you're doing and everybody gets the logic behind it, and that's how they construct their decision-making at the table, then you're likely not going to be the best player in the world, right? Like you're the best player in the world when people don't understand exactly what you're doing or why you're doing it.
I think historically that was more true as the artificial intelligence gets better and stuff like that. I mean, you don't see people questioning what Stephen Chidwick, the moves he's doing. It's like occasionally you get like some like completely out of the box, and probably if you watch them all the time, in fairness, you probably would get that a little more. But like most of the plays these guys do are like so sharp and so like sick on point that that it's hard to like look at it and be like, WTF was he doing, you know?
Yeah, we're going back to like, mainly I think I'm speaking about like 2010 before we had this
right.
before we had the solvers, before we can node lock and like reverse engineer exactly why somebody is taking a line that they're taking. To me, it's always been relatively easy figuring out why somebody's doing something, like reverse engineering it. It's like, what's the incentive here? What must they know in order to make this decision? And like sometimes if it's like a live event that's like cut up into just different pieces, somebody will do something completely off the wall that can be taken out of context from the broader picture. It could be a meta thing. It could be just some tendency that they've picked up on after playing with Guy for 12 hours that they go ahead and exploit, and then it looks really funky, just taken all by itself. So another quote from Mr. Ari. This was 2013. You said it's hard. Card player lifestyle, actually. Shout out to Robbie Straczynski, who's former Chasing Poker Greatness guest. You said it's hard enough making a living in the poker world in 2013, but when you combine that with the extra expenses associated with traveling the circuit, it becomes close to impossible. Now, it's 7 years later. You have more experience traveling and playing under your belt. Do you stand by that statement? What has changed in the last 7 years?
So I do mainly stand by that statement. When I was referring to the circuit, then I was specifically referring to like the low buy-in tournament circuit,
like WSOP circuit.
Exactly. Yeah. Like specifically that. But even if you included, the other mid-level MSPTs and HBT style brands, so the main event is like 1,500, let's say, and you can play five or six other tournaments with, let's say, 500 average buy-in. So let's say 5 tournaments. So we got 2,500 there, and 50, so we got 4K. We got 4K of buy-ins in the week. We're gonna say you're gonna spend a little bit on your hotels. You're gonna spend $70 a night times 5 or 6 nights. So we got 350 there. And we got, a couple of hundred extra, let's say, for a plane ticket or something like that.
Got to eat.
You eat everywhere. So I don't know if we need to include
That's
eating,
true.
although, but it may be a little bit higher of an eating cost. But so like we're doing it as cheaply as we can, and we got 500 or 600 in expenses on our 4,000 in buy-in. We're one of the better players, so we're going to make a 25% return on our buy-ins, which is really way one of the better players. Like in order to beat this 20% high rake or 17%, like it's so. But we're going to be optimistic. You're making $1,000 and your $4,000 in entries. You have $700 in expenses, so now you've made $300, and you expected to play 5 hours a day. You made $300 working your 25 hours in the course of the week. You're away from your family and friends, a normal thing. It just doesn't make sense. Like you can't do that.
You really think 25% ROI is expectation for live tournaments? That seems low to me, but
so most live tournaments have 150 people like during the week at $300. There's not going to be very many people that are having higher than 25% in the tournament. Like how does it work? Like you have 150 people, no one has negative 100% ROI. It just like when you start doing the math of what each person, and there's out of that 150, there's 30 people that are claiming to somewhat be a pro. There's like out of that 150, 100 think that they're actually profitable. Obviously that's not
maybe
the case.
150 think they're profitable.
Maybe yeah, okay. But we're being like I'm trying to be like somewhat realistic.
Yeah, I know. I'm just
and so like. Within that, I think like people way overestimate their ROIs, way overestimate potential ROIs, and like everyone thinks that they're better than they are. I mean, most of these tournaments are re-entry. Like, where do you think like how do like you're not crushing it at all? Like the better players, none of the best players are busting in the first half of the tournament because it's unlimited re-entry forever. You just don't like. I think 25%. Like, yeah. If you're playing the tournament, you have a 25% ROI at max, basically. Otherwise, you're moving up and you're like going to where you have, 25% at max in general.
What's been your ROI for like the last year?
I don't know. Maybe probably in that neighborhood, probably in the 25% neighborhood, but I don't know. But 1 year of live tournament really is like doesn't make a difference. I mean, you take out one.
It was an arbitrary duration.
Yeah.
I mean, if any statistics or data that you had would be helpful.
But also, like, I wouldn't say like I'm a good example to use. Like, I'm supposed to be one of the best players. Like, I'm definitely in like the tournaments that I'm playing in. Like,
no, it's my own curiosity. I want to know what one of the best. I want to know like what one of the best players' ROI is over a sustained period of time.
Yeah, right. That's fair. But I would just like caution like the viewer, like don't whatever number I would give, like you shouldn't think that's like even like possible. Like, like it's like these actors, like you think you're gonna like make if you're like starting to become an actor or like developing or whatever, you can't look at like the top actors what they're actually making, because that's like few people.
I think like realistically, people that are on their path chasing poker greatness, maybe the folks that are looking to make this a profession,
nice
to kind of
up.
Gotta get it in there, right?
Yeah.
Looking at like what the top level of possibilities are from a realistic perspective, and somebody that's in the game, that's battling, that has results over a sustained period of time, it is helpful to know like what's the gold medal, what's the trophy, what's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, if I had a guess, I would say probably that 25% number is fairly accurate for most years. I don't know, maybe 50% is more accurate for me.
That's a big difference.
I know.
That's not a small difference.
I'm starting to like think like I have like general numbers in my head, more like on the profit side, and then I'm trying to think of like what my buy-ins have been during those during past years. Of course, like about these kind of things, but like whenever I talk to like people outside of poker, like I talk so much about how crazy like tournament poker is, in the sense of like it's like the very few scores that I make, like the few wins that I have in big tournaments, they're everything, like my live tournaments, probably like 3 or 4 of those tournaments are like out of the 400 cashes that I have, or 350, probably 3 or 4 of them is like a quarter of the money won, or maybe even more than that. So it's like every year it's like, what's my ROI? Well, you want to take out you with the biggest score or without the biggest score. Without the biggest score, it's like it might not be profitable. Like it might be zero, it might be negative.
Yeah, but that's why we play, right? To get the biggest scores. Like you can't take them out, because that's the goal.
Right. Yeah. But it's also like, okay, so like my Aussie Millions win. Like, do you want to count it over 1 year, or like you should really be like, what is it that they do with taxes, where like over 10 years it's accounted for?
Yeah.
That would be more fair. And that's like kind of the way I looked at it.
Yeah. I would like all the data. I would like to look at the whole, as much as humanly possible, because that's how I tick on the inside. Speaking of the Aussie Millions, right? Like this is $1 million victory. How did that feel, taking that one down for $1 million?
It relief was like the biggest feeling that I had. Like you get, there's so many more 14ths and 17ths and 27ths than there are 1, 2s and 3s, and you get this sense, or one could get this sense, especially if one is like a little more like, some people I've met in poker have like the more Phil Hellmuth kind of thing, where like they're overconfident, and then some people are more like me, where like they're more underconfident. I'm way more towards that underconfident side. And you get, and when you start capping out in these big tournaments at 14th and 27th, you start feeling like maybe I can't do that. Maybe I can win 150 online and 1,500 live, but like a 10K live, maybe I'm just like, maybe I need to get as lucky as like these super lucky players to get there. And like, maybe I'm not good enough. It's super slow structure. My style is like very aggressive, very crazy, very unorthodox. Like I've had a lot of good players like Joe McKeon, who won the main event. He's like one of the main ones. So we have like a trolling kind of relationship. But like he like and it's like kind of the same thing I was telling you about Stealth Monk earlier. But like I have learned something from like his like constant trolls of me. But like one of the things like he's always saying is like that my style is not good for like for the main event. And what he's able and like so results influence us. And for me, I've never cashed.
He's got the perfect style for the main event, right?
Exactly.
He won it, obviously,
right.
so he's perfect.
And I've never cashed it. So I played it. It's so sick because like for a tournament player, the main event is the main event. And like you remember when you play it. You remember I played it once, I played it twice. I've lost it so many times that I've actually lost count of how many times that I played it. Like maybe like 10, 11, 12, 13, something like that. So it's like really sick. Like I've been killing tournaments all these years. The main event is known to be like a sick tournament. And like I've gotten a ton of chips. I've gotten 15 times the start stack 3 different times. And, like at worst, 10 times the start stack would cash. Like nowadays, it's like, the average is 10 times when you cash in the olden days when 10% paid. And nowadays the average is like 7 times the start stack or, and like I got up to 15 and I still wasn't able to cash, So yeah, so Joe will tell me like I'm doing a bunch of things that are wrong in these main event style things. And like, this is like nowadays, like he's telling me, but in those days I was thinking those same thoughts that like I'm doing something wrong in these main events. And it's so hard to win. And like, I mean, I'll go on a tangent here, but like I just had a final table in Australia this past year where I came into the final 10, I was chip leader, and then there were still 10 left and I was last in chips. And like, luckily I was able to like right the ship again and I ended up winning it. But like, that's insane to like, that's happened before where I come into the final table as chip leader and I get out 7th or 9th or whatever. Like, so I was expecting like, where along the lines am I going to mess this up? And here we are now at the highest of high stakes, like that I've ever played for. And like, I'm, I try and play my best. I've played so much poker, like it's like hard for me to play bad, but like the money is like completely out of control, completely out of anyone's bankroll that's there. And, yeah. So I mean, obviously excited and all that. Also, just like, wow, this is amazing. This is what we've all been, this is what I've been playing for forever. But also relief that it actually worked out.
Yeah, I mean, going back to my days on Party Poker, like battling in the $200 sit and goes, like I for sure remember going, 25 sit and goes without winning one, and asking myself like, Jesus Christ, like, am I ever going to win a freaking sit and go ever again? And like, these are final tables, right? Like you can lose a ton of final tables before you actually take one down. And it is, you don't get as many opportunities, obviously. And it can mess with your mind for sure. Don't feel bad, by the way. A good friend of mine, Jesse Yaganuma, has never cashed in the main event either. And he was telling me that over like a 4-year stretch, I think he made day 3 every single day without cashing. And
yeah, wow.
He's like, basically he had the distinction of playing in the main event longer than anybody else in the world without making any money. But yeah, it's
insane. Yeah. The variance that's possible in poker. I mean, I went to the World Series for 15 years and I never made a top 9 finish at the World Series. And like all while having like this super high ROI the rest of the year. And like, it was like, that was really getting to my head. Also like the World Series, like what is up with Vegas in the summer? And then last year I had a great summer and like my ROI in Vegas now is amazing overall. It's like completely healthy and fine. And yeah, it's like, it really can get into your head. And that's as like, I'm a super professional. Like I got all my stuff in line. Like I'm like as professional of a professional as you can get. And yet, like, I have not been able to avoid like having these like mental fall-ups and like all these things messing with my head.
Everyone does. It's part of the journey. It's just part of it. You go to bed and you go to bed with the thoughts in your head like, do I just not have it anymore? Did I just forget everything that I ever thought I knew about poker? Did I just get lucky for 10 years straight? Like, is it my luck's finally running out, right? Like
or whatever, or like I used to be good enough and now, and like at some stage, maybe I won't be. Like, it doesn't seem that crazy of an idea to think like at some stage I won't be able to be like very good. Yeah. So maybe that's today. Seems a little crazy.
You're too humble. I'm going to say the line on that is no chance unless you start like actively losing your mind while you're playing cards.
I hope you're right. And also so every day that I get more experience and more better, and also get unfortunately closer to the end of my life, like, but those things are like make the likelihood of me sucking at poker relative to the field goes down. Every day that I keep not, so these feelings, even if I go in a downswing today, I feel like that feeling would not be as strong as it might have been 4 years ago or 6 years ago or 8 years ago.
I feel very confident about the future of live poker. I think live poker, live poker tournaments are going to be beatable for a while. Online, I have like negative confidence in online over the long term, but live, I'm pretty confident. And I would say like, I would say that anybody that takes you on as a horse is going to be a plus EV investment over the next 10 years. Like it's almost impossible in my opinion.
I hope you're right, but I feel like if you went through history, you would find people that have been in my that have been in somewhat of a similar shoe to where I am today relative to the poker world, and then did fall off. But whether it's hard to know. Yeah.
Again, I'm going to disagree because they're not Ari, right? They're not you. And like you said, as a professional's professional, that's going to be a lot different than
that is very helpful. Yeah.
I do have old man coffee in the 90s, not understanding what they're doing wrong in 2010, and not being able to make adjustments. Like I feel like it's a different animal. I don't think that's really a great comparison.
You're right. And actually, one of the things that this is kind of a side note, but one of the things I really enjoyed in the last year. So as time has gone on, I've become more confident as a poker player, more confident as a person. I mean, I really feel like poker has just been unbelievably beneficial to my life. Forgetting about the financial perspectives, just like teaching me how ideas to think about life. And 5 years ago, if someone misbehaved at the table, my move was always the same thing. I was just like quiet, rolled up into a ball, and didn't want to say anything, didn't want to antagonize that person. Most likely they're a losing player if they're going to act all crazy. Even a winning player, I was like, look, I'm not messing with the crazy person. But like now, like I'm just like, I'm almost the first person to like, if someone is like rude to a dealer or just like out of line or whatever, like a lot of times they're actually, so like I've been playing a lot in this last month, I played mixed games, 500 or 400 buy-ins to like 2K buy-ins tournaments. So like this mid-stake mixed game world. And it's like, it's almost a window into what poker was like 15, 20 years ago. There's been very little new blood injected into this. Most of the players have been playing 15, 20 years. And a lot of the attitudes that were okay 15, 20 years ago are still prevalent in these circles. So it was like, I had to tell like one of the best players, this guy's won like 3 bracelets in a particular version mixed game. He's like a beast. He's one of the best at this. And and he loses the hand and he's berating the player who made a mistake. And like, just like a really common thing. Like, and I had to like pull him aside and he's like, thank you for doing that and all that. Like he knows, he definitely knew better, but it was just like in the heat of the moment. Or, unfortunately we had one of the guys who was doing the LAPC had this player of the series leaderboard. And the guy who at the time was number 1, I don't think he ended up as number 1, but, it was a very enjoyable experience getting to play with these kind of players. He claims to be a professor. We don't know. The table wasn't sure if he was lying about it or not. But they've been playing with him for 15 years. They still don't know, And a particular dealer came to the table And he was like, he just gets up and leaves. Oh, no, he didn't even get up. So he got up and leave. He came back and he's sitting at the table. He's like, I don't want to look at my cards. This dealer is not a good dealer for me. Did not like, it's stud. Like you can potentially have like an ace showing a Raz or whatever. But like some of these games are like, there's like these must steal spots or like, like spots where it's like really like you can have complete monsters. Like you definitely would want to play. I guess every game can have that, even if you want to play like a nit. But he just wasn't at all. So he's like a unique personality. But then, and that was kind of fun. But then, like the next day, he tilted off at a dealer and wished her coronavirus.
Jesus.
So yeah, and like the table was like, oh fuck, this guy again. Like, what's he doing? But like I called the floor. I got up in like you got to get like the floor is like kind of like these kind of like loudmouth live guys. Like a lot of times they like bully the floor into not penalizing them and stuff like that. I was like, you got to give this guy a penalty like for that, and they did and whatever. And it was okay. But like, I do find like my confidence has increased and I'm more able to like, like interact and like use my position that like people know I'm a winning player. And it's a little different when you're like a young kid, like the way people treated me at the table 10, 12 years ago. It was really good for me because everyone just thought that I didn't really know what I was doing and I was a young, inexperienced kid and didn't look like, I have sweaty hands. I look like I'm not, that I don't fit in, especially like, let's say when I was religious and I was wearing a yarmulke at the table, it was the dream. Like I always talk about, because you want to be different than the image you're portraying. Like if I could dress up as like a 90-year-old lady, like Phil Luck did kind of, but that's not image.
Yeah, I went through a stretch playing high stakes cash games in the Bay Area where I dressed up in a suit like every single session. Like I had a suit, I went in there, like didn't have the sweatpants, didn't have the t-shirt, and like people treat you differently when you dress differently. Like they perceive you automatically as something that you're not, which in the poker world, having portraying an image that's different from reality is really, really, really profitable and good.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to, as I was getting started playing more live tournaments, but still I was primarily an online player. So I was playing, hundreds and thousands of tournaments. I mean, I'm one of the most experienced players when it comes to tournament poker in the last few years. At this time, this might have been 08, something 09, and I go play a 5K in Council Bluffs, Iowa, like in the middle of nowhere. No professionals will go to this. It was like a circuit main event style thing. Had like 80 people, almost all from like driving distance, local. I decided to fly in from Vegas, but this was not a common thing that other people from Vegas would come for. And no one knew me there. And these like older people are like treating me like I'm, like a baby, like learning the rules of the game. Like, and it was great. And I played into it. Like I played and started asking them questions and all that. And in the meantime, like completely getting into their thought process, like they're telling me exactly the way they're thinking and they're completely underestimating. And then if they ever see me do, like, I remember one hand where it was like a 2-blind stack went all in and then like 4 people called and I had like, let's say queen jack or something in the small blind and I re-raised and then everyone folded and I get heads up, putting in 2 blinds, getting 7-1 on my money. It's like a standard, normal, amazing thing that happened. And the table is like, and there was like 16 left, like losing one player means nothing, like very little. And the rest of the table is like, no, you need to lose a player. Like you made a big mistake here.
You call and you check it down unless you have the nuts every time.
Which is like such a common thing in like low stakes, but this was a 5K main event tournament. And yeah, it was great. And they complete, and I loved it. Like, so like some of the best thing, like I love it when I see like, let's say, I don't know if I've actually directly seen this, but like, let's say I see someone completely abusing like the stereotype someone else has about them. Let's say there's a real racist person there and someone from a minority completely, like the racist guy goes, these minorities suck at poker. And then the minority like owns him out in a big pot. Like that kind of shit I love to see. So like, I love like abusing, like, oh, you think like a religious person is going to be like a tight ass and not know how to play? Okay, great. 3-bet your ass like crazy, whatever the situation. And I get enjoyment like seeing that kind of thing. Like I try and get enjoyment from like these little side things that go on at the table. And I do get like some like life force, like pumping me up when I see things like that.
For sure. And by the way, you just completely ruined the 5K Council Bluffs main event. Now it's going to be inundated with all the pros all the young pros taking advantage of the old folks.
I waited 10 years to tell that story for a reason.
What is up, my loyal Chasing Poker Greatness listener? Coach Brad here, and I just wanted to take a moment to ask you a simple question. How many times have you heard my guests and I speak passionately about the benefits of poker coaching? You get to expand your poker network, receive expert feedback you can rely on, and have your burning questions answered by a trusted mentor. Which brings me to the Poker Power Hour, a series of 100% free live 1-hour poker webinars, masterclasses, and hand history breakdowns that kick off each and every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Poker Power Hour will be led by me, Coach Brad, as well as some of your favorite Chasing Poker Greatness guests. It will be your weekly guide for helping you plug your leaks, skyrocket your poker growth, expand your network of crushers, and inevitably win more money on the green felt. The Poker Power Hour is premium content and live only. There will be no free replays or view on demand, and the content will eventually be released as paid training only. So head to enhanceyouredge.com, opt in to the Poker Power Hour, and get for free today what you'll have to pay for it later. Once again, to catch the Poker Power Hour every single week, head to enhanceyouredge.com and join the email newsletter. Now, back to the show. So today, what does your process for regularly improving your game look like?
My process for regularly improving my game is playing and thinking about hands and discussing with friends those hands, reviewing hand histories, and watching like live streams and things like that.
How do you review hand histories, like as granularly as possible?
So I open up Poker Tracker and I click on an old tournament that I or a friend have played on, and we replay every hand. And I usually do it in like a group of like 2 to 3 people, and we just discuss every hand, like what we think we should do, and then it's like, okay, did that happen or not? And then kind of go into tangents sometimes from that, but a lot of fast forwarding, but then a lot of looking at some hands and discussing them. And
not too old, right? Like maybe like
as recent as can be. I mean, yesterday I did it with a friend, a tournament that he had played the night before, and I think he got third in it or something, and we just went through the hand. Like it took like 45 minutes or an hour or something like that, kind of like at this time of day when I'm talking to you, like before my tournament start in the morning. Maybe I would do that, let's say, if I left early, but not I haven't embarrassed to say, but have not used solvers, have not done real good studying. I've messed around with Dominic's app, DTO, gotten the lowest possible grades ever. We kind of were discussing this before, and maybe I got off topic, like the high roller world. Like I started playing them a little bit. I sold action. I felt great. I played one time. I played 100K at World Series, and I was the first person up to 3 times the starting stack. I happened to get like a ridiculous table draw, which was like super soft for a 100K tournament with a bunch of non-professionals, and just everything went my way. My results overall in the high roller scene were like not amazing. Like the couple of cashes that I had ended up in like either like 2x cash or 3x cash. They didn't get huge. Like one of them was a 7th place finish, but 7th is not that amazing when it's out of 18 people. But I never started feeling like not confident in them, I just stopped playing them before I got anywhere close to that. As I became more aware of solvers and what they, and the power of them, I guess, I became a lot less confident in my ability to hold my own in those tournaments. And
feels like you need to get in there. You need to do some solving and at least get familiar with what can be done and what cannot be done. Because in my opinion, there's a lot of things that cannot be done that folks think can be done with the solver. And I mean, even the high rollers, me and James Romero came on the show and we were talking, and he said even at like 25Ks, I think it was 100K. A bunch of rich businessmen just flew in to take a shot, fire some bullets at a 100K tournament. So there's still recreationals in the field. And like the 25K, he was saying, rich businessmen, recreational players, put their girlfriends in the tournament who have never played poker before in their lives. So like,
I'm gonna. I'm not going to say that these stories didn't happen. Obviously, they did. I'm not calling him a liar. But when you're going to look through the percentage of 25Ks and the composition of the field, it's
my point was there's still value. Like at every, there's still going to be some. There's still going to be some weak spots in the field, regardless of.
Of course, there has to be some. Otherwise, the tournaments wouldn't go off. But there definitely is some. And when I was playing them, the whole math was like, okay, there's those recreational players are why I'm playing it, and the pros are maybe they're slightly better than me, or I'm holding my own against them. When every decision they're like 100% sharp, and they're betting 53% of the pot, and I'm betting 37% because I'm just not sharp. Like it's just like every decision is just a little off. It's not like some huge differences, but there's at least that super sharpness. And then there is some spots where it's like, I mean, most of these like James Ramiro style players, like who are like actually like playing high rolls on a regular basis, it's like 32 blinds cut off against hijack. You can wake them up at 2 a.m. and they have their strategy down. I'm like, that happens to me. I'm like, I'm thinking what I'm doing, like I'm more, and I don't even know like these feel and math and like they're like old terms that don't properly translate into nowadays. Like when I was an online player, I was a pure math science player, but that was 10 years ago's math. I'm just not up to date on all the proper science related topics. And nowadays people will call me like a field player because of that, so
I get it drives me nuts hearing that as like an insult. Oh, these field players making their decisions. Like, first of all, let's quantify what field means. Field to me is your poker intuition that's built up on years of experience playing many, many hands that gives you a feeling, quote unquote feeling, when you're at a decision point to go one direction or the other. And like this is most everybody experiences this in every single tournament that they ever play or every single cash game that they ever play, because this is our intuition. It's a subconscious mind that's processing tons of information that leads you to a decision. So it drives me crazy when people use the term field player as like an insult, because it's a really dumb insult. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. And actually I feel like, people have used field player as like a insult historically. I don't know so much. Like I got a high roller player. I was playing probably one of the last like high roller style tournaments I was playing, which was like maybe 2 years ago. It was a 10K rake free satellite into the 300K, and I decided to play that at the beginning of a summer one year. And I was playing with one of these high roller regulars, complete regular plays, like, one of the most successful of them. And he goes, "You're such a," like, he told me like, "You're a field player," in a conversation we had, like, but it was like as a compliment, it seemed to me, like, so like it can definitely be done in both ways. But like he was like telling me as a compliment, like, I think I'm not now with the hindsight of your statement, maybe I'm like, it's going through my head. Maybe was it really? But like, I'm pretty sure it was a compliment. And it's like, definitely like an Ivy style player. Like even if he can't properly explain everything, I mean, there's no one's thinking, especially like, let's say go back to him at his peak. He's like crushing everybody. It's like whether you can explain it or it's like directly based on the math or it comes from a different point of view. If you're reaching the right conclusions on a consistent basis, I mean,
how can you argue with that?
Like, yeah.
You can't. And nobody's going to be able to explain verbatim specifically what goes through their head when they make decisions at poker tables all the time, because there's so much information. Like there's so much information that you're taking into consideration when you're making a decision, that like trying to verbally express it is almost a waste of time. It's like, it's super inefficient. You can say,
know. I can see both ways in that regard. My friend likes to say a statement, which I'm not sure I 100% agree with, but he's like, if it's lacking in if you can't explain it well, you probably don't have the concept down so well.
Okay, so let me backtrack a little bit on what I'm saying. It's inefficient for Phil Ivey to explain all of the decisions that he makes. Like it would just take so much time. Much time and energy. Give him a day and he could formulate his thoughts and write everything out and take everything into consideration and, write an essay online. But like, it's inefficient because who the hell cares? It's not doing him any good.
And I think the major point is that he can, like, if necessary, that one day explanation could come out. And that's the important part. And so it's not just like some like, oh, I felt it, but that it's like there's deep things behind it.
And here's another point too. Every poker player that I've ever known in a spot like that, they're always asking themselves why. Like I've made decisions that like in the heat of battle, I think are correct. And my poker intuition, my instinct tells me, do this, take this action. And then I take it and it works out. And then automatically I'm asking myself, why did you do that? Why did you think that? What information did you pick up? How can I implement this into my game? Was it right? Was it wrong? So you're constantly analyzing your own thought processes anyway. Just that's my experience. The natural progression of a poker player is to always ask yourself, why did you do what you did? Why are you thinking the way that you are thinking? Right?
Yeah. We're getting dangerously close to advertising for Matt Berkey, so let's not go there.
I love Matt Berkey, actually. I think,
that brand name they came up with, so for why it's pretty beautiful and
it pisses me off every time I think about it. I'm like, God damn it! It's so good. Like it's just on point, Yes, but it's the truth. It's the heart of poker, and somehow he came up with it, and my hat's off to him. I'm stuck with my shitty old enhance your edge. All right, let's do some lightning round questions, man, and then you can go down there and take up for some dealers that get berated by the old folks. What's some common poker advice you hear that you completely disagree with?
Well, the first thing it's lightning round, so I'll do the first thing that came to mind, which would be play for the win.
Okay, why?
And explain. The explanation is, of course, like ICM related concepts. So, like when I first started playing, on TV, the pros would all say, "Play for the win. Don't care about moving up one or two spots because all the money's at the top." And the way people played in those days, where people cared way too much about moving up one spot, and so you would actually make more money not caring at all about the win, or not caring at all about moving up. And just caring about the win. And I took that to a next level actually in the olden days. And my advice was try and bubble. They're not going to let you bubble. You're going to accumulate so many chips, but your goal should be to try and bubble. And
by that you mean exploit the living shit out of the bubble by being an absolute lunatic,
maniac, right? And that kind of goes full circle into like my main event situations. Like 3 or 4 of those times were within 1% of the money. I was like, if 10% paid, like I was in the 11 percentile, and I was just like super close. And all of them, like nowadays, were like spots where like I could just fold and be in the money. Like probably I shouldn't be doing this hyper risk move, But anyway, that's what got me there. Those were my ideas at the time, and but yeah, that was a big change, going from not caring at all about all these other about making the money or moving up and all that, and laughing at people who did that, to now almost being one of them. But finding the right balance between these contradicting ideas, which both have merits.
Yeah, you have to find the right balance. And I will, going back to like the 2000s to 2010 era of poker, there was a lot of value, especially in live tournaments, to winning them. Secondary value. Like Jeff Madsen was on the show and he talked about like being a full tilt red pro, and he got $5,000 a month just for being a full tilt red pro, right? Like, that's pretty good. That's a pretty fun secondary benefit, getting sponsorships and getting deals that are lucrative outside of the poker world. But I don't know how much of that exists in today's climate for just winning one tournament. I would think not so much.
Yes.
If you could gift all poker players one book to read, what would it be and why?
It's funny because I listen to your podcast, so I should know. I should have at least somewhat expected. The only one I remember is Dusk or Dawn. That's the only one and that doesn't take a lot of thought process. I don't know if you do that every time. Book. Well, I haven't read a book this year. It is what it is. I don't know if I'm embarrassed. Maybe like one. I don't know. Like I was like, I go to like one of those statistical and like Nassim Taleb style books, but I don't even know if poker players actually need that. They're one of the people that probably don't need that as a whole.
It could be anything, honestly.
Yeah, I know. Something like we're all the same human beings. Be nice to each other, and like we're more similar than not similar. But I don't have a book to read. I don't know that the Bible actually tells people that. So yeah.
Yeah, now you're treading on dangerous ground.
Yes, yeah.
We'll segue away from that. Okay, if you could erect a billboard, every poker player's got to drive past on their way to the casino, what does it say?
Okay, so that I guess that's kind of where my last answer was a little more correct, but kind of we're all the same. We're all in this together. People are more similar than different.
100%.
Be nice, something like that.
We're all human beings, and atom for atom in different situations, we would be more like the people that we don't like than we are comfortable with.
Yes.
What wisdom would you share to listeners of the show who are hell-bent on realizing their poker dreams?
Bankroll management is really, really key. You can't, money is the tool of the trade. If you lose it, you don't have any tools. Slow and steady. There's no rush. There will be tournaments tomorrow. There will be tournaments the day after. You don't need to play. There is no must. You don't have to play the main event. You don't have to play the main event at the stop. You don't have to play the 400 re-entry. You don't have to play anything. There's never a must-play tournament. There's never a must-play situation. You're probably better off if you only play 90% of the days that you would play and not play the 10% worst days. Of course, it's very hard to predict when those bad days would happen. But, probably for someone like me, like I probably overworked in my history, not taking off enough days, not taking off enough time, balance,
I love that in the same conversation, you say that you don't work harder than anybody else, but you also don't take days off. You also work harder than most people.
Yeah, I guess I put in more hours than most people. I'm a little bit the work hard part gets me maybe triggered a little bit. But
because we're thinking of poker as hard work, right? We're thinking of sitting in a circle with a bunch of people looking at cards is a hard thing to do.
Well, even within poker, there's harder work and there's soft and there's less hard work. So like I never 20 tabled, I nowadays when I play online, I play 2 or 3 tables and I don't start up a new one if I'm getting deep.
One could make the argument that 20 tabling is actually less hard than like 4 or 6 tabling, but I don't want to go down that path and that
fair enough. And that's one of the reasons why I, especially with my style, I'm not. I'm just a high VPIPer, and I'm not. This.
Yeah, you're going to battle, right? You're going to find. You're going to see the spots. You're going to find the spots. You're not going to just get in autopilot mode and click around. Like it's never worked for me either. Like there's diminishing returns. 6 tables maximum. I've tried playing 10. I've tried playing 12, and like I turn into autopilot button clicker, and I lose my natural edge, which is seeing some of the unconventional spots and making the exploits and taking advantage of tendencies. Because I can't see the tendencies when there's 12 decisions going on all the time.
And like in tournaments, if you miss that one spot with 24 people left, you get 7th instead of getting 3rd. Like you just had less,
diminishing returns.
The one thing that happens could just be the difference, between, especially with these top high payouts. Because you could say, like in a cash game, okay, like if I miss this spot and I lose, 2/10 of a big blind, but I'm making that up, having these extra ones, I'll still make more money over the long run. But I mean, I guess that's still true in tournaments somewhat. But with the high stakes level, with the fact that not all your stakes are equal, it's very easy to miss those super high stakes spots, I guess.
It crushes you in cash games too, for sure. I love playing against the 10. I love playing against the 10 tabling guys because I know like I'm playing 4. I'm going to have a much better handle on what they're doing, and they're just going to be do autopilot mode. Easier to get a beat on what they're doing. So a couple more questions, and we'll get you out of here. I do want to ask this. I want to circle back to this one that I passed up earlier. We've talked about a lot of the joy that you've had. Binking your million. I want to ask you, when it comes to pain in your poker career, what's the first memory that comes to mind?
So the first thing that comes to mind is going to be weird to some people. It's the idea of having highly successful financial years that are majority filled with pain. So in tournaments, we lose the vast majority of the time. And then even when we cash, the vast majority of cashes are not really that great. And even the great ones, even if you finish 3rd for a career high score, you still are kind of let down that you didn't get 2nd or 1st. And so like I can recall, having, let's say, a 2007 year where I had a great financial year, but I went to sleep probably pissed off like 280 of the nights. So like that, and that's like so natural. That's the normal way people play tournaments are. If they bust, that day was a fail and they're pissed off that like, that's a completely normal thing. That's how we learn how to play tournaments. And it's something that I'm still not over at all, but that's something that my goal is to get to, and to try and view my own success or failure not by the one tournament result. It seems so obvious. It's like crazy to like, it's like so obvious that when I win a tournament, I didn't do everything right, obviously. And same thing's true when I lose a tournament and I didn't do it. Like I could easily have done everything right. It's like, it doesn't mean that I did something wrong. And certainly it's not like, even if I did do something wrong, it's not like one big epic fail. It's like all like the same way I wanted to split my Aussie Millions win into 10 years and amortize, or whatever the word is. I also want to look at my year is like, okay, I'm going to play 300 entries. 40 of them are going to amount into cashes. 260 of them are not going to be cashes. They're going to be bust out of the money. I know that going into it. Viewing those 260 as fails now, no, like at the end of the year, it's going to be a financially successful year. That's the job. That's the goal. And those 260 bust outs are they're the same level of success as the 40 cashes, as the 2 or 3 wins. Every day is exactly the same. That's the way it should be.
You're seeing the logical versus the emotional part of the human experience, right? And like, anybody that doesn't touch on the emotional aspect of poker is not doing themselves justice, because emotions are part of the game. Every human feels the same way when they bust in a tournament, when they get busted in a giant pot in a cash game, when they lose for 5 or 10 days in a row, or they bust 25 tournaments. You feel like a loser. You feel like you're not good. You feel dumb. Regardless of anything that's ever happened to you in the past, you still have these feelings of self-doubt, and it's all emotion. So learning how to deal with this emotion is like paramount as a professional poker player, because if you can't deal with this, if you're circling all the way back to the beginning of the podcast, if you're emotionally compromised, you're never going to make it as a poker player, period. You have no chance regardless of your skill level. Anything you'd like to add?
I mean, and I guess one of the things that stick out for the pain thing for me also has been like after, you know, in let's say 2013. Let's say 2013. Yeah. So I've been a highly successful online player for 8 or 9 years already. Black Friday hit. I moved away. I moved to Canada and played online for a year and a half. And now I decided, okay, I'm going to go on the live circuit and play more live stuff, which I had already been doing more and more of, but now I'm going to go full-time live. And I started off playing small because I'm naturally conservative. I'm playing nitty. I'm playing circuit stuff. And I wasn't right away. I had some success here or there. But at some stage within the first year and a half, I went on like a 100 or 150K downswing. There were some higher buy-ins in there, but not like, I mean, in maybe 1 10K, maybe 2. I doubt there was 2, you know, the main event, but I don't know. But it was, you know, mainly 1,500 mains, 300 prelims, stuff like that. Like I went on 100+ K downswing playing against people who I thought were like way below my skill level. Like I just come from winning online. Like I should not be losing at these lower stakes. So that was that probably was I don't know if it was peak pain. I was already, you know, financially somewhat secure, but that was like, what? How am I losing to these guys? And is it gonna? You know, maybe I'm not good enough anymore. Like maybe my style, like everything I thought about poker is not correct. And like, yeah.
The chickens are coming home to roost. You just got lucky online for 10 years, and now you can't hack it in the live world.
I mean, yeah, it's funny looking back, but at the time, it's like, what? Like, oh my God.
You understand it when you're in it. Like, hindsight, it looks silly, but when you're in it, it's amazing what your brain can tell you and the lies that you can believe.
Yeah. And for some people, like, not to get into politics, but okay, we want to talk Trot. We'll talk Phil Hellmuth again. He's a much easier guy to bash on, I guess. But those kind of people, they fool themselves into thinking they're like way better. Like for them, it's like much easier for them to think positive thoughts about themselves. For me, it's much easier for me to think negative thoughts about themselves. But it's the same.
Do you feel a little jealous of the people that only think the positive thoughts and have like? I'll say arrogance about it. About them.
Yeah. So I had a guy. I used to do a lot of poker coaching, but I don't do that anymore. But I used to run like a poker coaching school with a guy who was way more into that part of the. He thought like that, you know, super confident. He used to say I could take a break from poker for like 10 years and come back and I'll still crush. And then he took a break for 3 months and things didn't work out so well after that. But so like I at one stage I had a lot of jealousy for that thought process, at least or not even jealousy, but I was like, I want to have more of that in my life. And I think I've gotten some of it, but I think for being a professional poker player, I think like the underconfidence and like so let's say I could have been playing high rollers and now I'm stuck and I'm only playing min. Not yet. Thank you. 1 second.
Housekeeping.
Yeah. So let's say I could have played higher, but I'm okay. So I didn't make as much, but I'm still a successful poker player, and I like didn't reach my peak level. Like I could have been Jungleman, and instead I'm Ari Engel. Okay, you know, maybe that's a possibility. But let's say the other way was true, where I was overconfident, and now I'm going to go busto and not be able to play because I'm going to be playing. So like the dangers of the overconfidence seem more than the dangers of the underconfidence. Of course, the best thing is to like
balance,
have a healthy middle. Yeah. But for me, it's worked out really good, and some of it has been like probably really helpful. Like that 100 150K downswing playing low stakes would have been so much higher playing high stakes. And like, I mentally was not strong. So like, I wouldn't have been any stronger had I been playing high stakes. That's for sure, you know?
I could make the argument that after losing 100, 150K, like you're mentally strong, right? Like after going on a run for a year and still firing the tournaments and doing this for a living, like there is mental strength there. There's mental strength when you get your teeth kicked in, when you do something that is objectively dumb and you punt away a buy-in. It takes somebody who's mentally strong to reach in their pocket, grab some money, and sit down the next day and participate in a poker tournament.
Yes, to some extent. Yeah. Again, all these things, I feel like I feel like it's so much tougher for your average poker player who doesn't have the same level of success as me and doesn't have the bankroll and history and all that. If I had done something, like, I know for a fact, like just in the last year, like a bunch of my plays would have gotten me dropped if I would have had a backer. Like they would have changed my life. Like there's no question. Like I'm thinking about this like Montreal hand where like I cold 4-bet shove 40 blinds with king deuce. Like every single person agrees that it's horrible. There's no justification. There's no anything. No one can even like come up with anything like half rational for it. Whatever, you know.
I can come up with something half rational. I mean, it's pretty easy to come up with something half rational, right?
Yeah, but not when you're the backer. Not when you see that done with like 40 left in a huge tournament. Like it's like that's dropping worthy material to do that.
It's so short-sighted and foolish, though. It's like, oh, I'm going to invest in Apple. They lost 5%. Oh, I'm done with Apple. I don't believe in them anymore. Like you made a decision based on historical results on this player to invest in them. Like, yeah, everybody's going to do something stupid. Like all the time. Like I do stupid things every day that I play poker.
And I guess like different. There is some, and like I'm probably like mixing together like the high roller levels and the main event levels. Where in the high roller levels, if you do something at all out of line, there you actually do get dropped. In the mains, there is that flexibility, and there's more of an openness to this idea that you can actually play very exploitative and do somewhat dumb shit from a theoretical perspective.
From all perspectives, this is really dumb and bad for backers in the whole poker world. Because when you have your horses playing under this mindset where if they do something stupid, if they do something like unorthodox that they've been doing forever because this is how they're programmed and how they play, you're trying to find these spots, right? You're cold 4-betting king deuce. Why? Maybe cold 4-betting is super underbluffed. Maybe the initial preflop raiser is raising too loose, and the guy 3-betting him is raising 3-betting way too loose. So you're just taking an exploitative spot. Like when you have people playing under the mindset that they can't do these things that they're programmed to do, they have to actively fight their poker instinct. How do you think that affects ROI long term? It's going to crush ROI long term.
Yeah, I remember I had, let's say, 4 years ago, a mid-stakes grinder on the East Coast hit a bad beat jackpot and got a bunch of money in his hands and decided he wanted to take as much action as he could, backing other people in the poker world. And I got into a relationship with him, and he proceeded to tell me, I don't want to have small pieces. If I had take 10% in somebody, I feel like what could have been if I would have had 50 or 60%. And they want, so his thing was he wanted max in everyone, and he was trying to get, so for me, I didn't need to be selling to these tournaments, but he was offering me such high prices, but only under the condition that I sold heaps to him. So it was almost like some of them were free rolls, some were like he bought 50% at high markup. But so like I was getting these deals of a lifetime. I was rooming with him, I was friends with him, spending a lot of time talking poker with him. He was my backer at the time, but he was definitely worse at poker than me. And but he had these really strong notions, and basically the notion boiled down to if you got it in bad, that was really bad. and he was like such a results oriented person, and like it was like, let's say like he free rolled me into a tournament. It would be like, I know what I want to do in this tournament, and I know what he would want to do. And it's like he had like, I know my play makes more money in the long run, but I'm gonna have to deal with him after the tourney. It's not that different. I'll just be a nit about it and do what he would want to do. And yeah, it's definitely not good.
Yeah,
overall.
that's bullshit and just really bad. Here's the bat signal for all of you guys running staking groups and staking players. Just use me as a consultant. I'll deal with the players. You just collect your money at the end of the year. We'll maximize ROI. It's good for everybody. Ari, what's a project you're working on that's near and dear to your heart, if you have any right now?
I do not have any projects I'm working on. I guess, the project I'm most working on is paying my taxes for last year. Every year, it's such a nightmare. I can barely stay on top of all my things. It's like, I play too much. It's like, it's so dumb also. Like, I'll jump into this like small buy-in poker tournament. My hourly rate is so much higher dealing with taxes or dealing with whatever these other things that I hate to deal with are, and paying bills and that. And but
you're an adult, Ari. This is adulting 101, buddy.
I know. It's embarrassing. And as I'm saying that, like, I have work I could do today, and I probably will go jump into a 360 tournament. Oh my God. Yeah. So like, maybe.
What's your current big goal in poker?
I don't have a good vision for how I see the next few years playing out, or even longer term than that. I don't have big goals in poker for sure, and then outside of poker, I'm not sure if I want to. I guess I'm 36 now. I can wait longer to start a family if I want to. But at the same time, if that's something that I really do want to do, then maybe I should spend more time trying to find a partner, which is not very likely. Like in my current lifestyle, where I live in a certain city for 2 weeks and then I move to another city in 2 weeks. But at the same time, I'm loving life. I'm really enjoying what I do. I don't know if I want to make like huge changes to what's going on. I love playing live. I love playing online. I really love playing online in places where it's legal. I feel such a big difference when I play in Pennsylvania or New Jersey or Vegas compared to like playing in Toronto or Amsterdam or on the international sites. Forget about the American sites. We won't go into that. I do not feel comfortable playing on them at all. And lucky for me, I don't have to. So it's like, I don't,
It's funny. I see so many parallels in you and me. You're 36. I'm 36. You started playing poker 2004. I started playing poker 2004. When I met my wife, it's been 5 or 6 years ago now, and we got serious and I started staying at her place. This was like on the heels of me living at Commerce and living in the Bay Area and just, living out of a suitcase, battling in cash games, coming back, spending time with my kids, and then flying back out again, and like just this whole back and forth type thing. And when I moved in with my wife, I lived out of a suitcase for like a month, maybe 2 months. Like I never took and she's like, one day she's like, you can put your stuff like in the dresser, right? Like you don't have to just have this suitcase. And I remember thinking like, I had this thought that like, I have a home. Like it's been like 5 years. I have a dresser to put my clothes in. It almost felt weird.
It's going to be interesting when I get back to that more normal kind of life. And it's kind of crazy because like from 2004 till 2011, I was like I almost never left my house. I almost never traveled. I like stayed at home. I could have been like a stay-at-home dad or whatever. Like I was just at home all the time. Like it was such a normal kind of life, somewhat, I mean, it had its own abnormalities, but when it comes to the traveling part at all, and then now it's like I'm on the go 24/7 or whatever, 365.
Yeah, it's tough. You're gonna have to bag yourself a poker player or make some serious lifestyle changes.
I mean, I'll definitely have to make lifestyle changes, but I mean, I'm assuming that I will want to at some stage. Like,
that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
This crazy traveling is not sustainable. I mean, that's never been the thought that I would be doing this in my 50s.
Yeah, it's fun though. Enjoy it.
It's
enjoy
fun.
it.
It's
while it's
tons
going
of
on.
fun, and it's like, financially, it makes more sense than like traveling like 3 weeks a month and like being home and having a base a quarter of the month. But as I'm more financially secure, that might make more sense from like a happiness perspective. Just having some sort of base, even playing a bunch of live tournaments still could make more sense. And then maybe cutting back over time slightly on the travels. I mean,
you're a smart guy. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out.
Yes, I think so.
Ari, I've loved this conversation very much. I would like to speak for hours more. I'm sure we could. Maybe we will in the future. Final question. Where can the Chasing Poker Greatness audience find you on the World Wide Webs?
I'm on Twitter. I think it's Ari Engel Poker at the moment. I've kind of changed the name every now and again, but I think that's what it is now. But if you Google Ari Engel Twitter, I'm sure it'll come up.
Had to go into witness protection from all the trolls.
No, I just messed around. I mean, probably the best place to find me is if you go play live tournaments in whatever area you live in. I will eventually make it there, almost for sure.
Yeah, very similar to Darren Elias. When I asked him that question, he's like, I'll be at the Borgata. You can find me there.
Well, I very much enjoy being compared to Darren Elias anytime, any place, no matter what it is. So, yeah.
He is a beast. And
yes.
Thank you for your time and energy, man. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much, Brad. It's been good.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Chasing Poker Greatness. If you have yet to subscribe to the show, please take a second to do so on Apple Podcasts or wherever your favorite place to listen to podcasts may be. For more content from me, Coach Brad, please visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/enhanceyouredge, and I'll see you next time.